While working for the Navy, the film editor and writer Steve Wilson took time on his day off to wander out into the Mojave Desert. There he found a large rock in the ground and climbed on top of it, admiring the view of the California wilderness. While there, he had the thought of what it would be like if something out in the desert was keeping him from leaving the rock, if something was under the ground, prepared to attack the second he set foot on loose earth. He wrote the idea down and filed it away in a folder of scattered ideas. Some years later, he and Brent Maddock became writing partners and found surprise success with a script for Short Circuit, a lighthearted movie about a robot.
Welcome to my planet!
Following this, their agent, Nancy Roberts, told them to go through their folders and pick out any ideas that could make for a good movie. Wilson then dug out his concept for underground monsters, and a cult classic was born.
Something is afoot in the tiny town of Perfection, Nevada. People have gone missing, others have turned up dead in bizarre locations, and a visiting scientist is getting unusual readings from her seismometers. Beneath the ground, creatures with a thirst for blood are on the prowl, and it is up to a pair of unlikely heroes to defeat them.
Before we go any further, if you could please hit that like button, it would keep me from having to deal with too much crap. If you really do like this video, go ahead and subscribe as well. Thank you in advance. With that out of the way, let's get back to the subject at hand. Steve Wilson and Brent Maddock took their loose idea to their friend Ron Underwood, with whom they'd worked on short films and educational videos. After completing the first of what would eventually be 7 different drafts, they collectively took the script to producer Gail Ann Hurd, producer of hits like The Terminator and Aliens, who liked it enough to become the film's executive producer, in which capacity she sold the movie to Universal, making sure to keep Wilson and Maddock on as producers and Rob Underwood as director. They weren't given a large budget, but considering this would be the trio's first major motion picture in their respective roles as producers and director, they were given a remarkable amount of creative freedom to produce the movie however they wanted. Their first step was polishing the script, originally entitled
Hey, Eric. Hey, are you there?
Wait, what? Hello?
It's Mike from I Miss the 90s. I'm kind of running out of ideas for my next video, so we were wondering if maybe we could jump in on this one since it's a 90s movie.
Hey, ask him if we're gonna get paid.
All right.
I'm sorry, everybody. I don't really understand what's happening here. I've never been interrupted before. Okay, go ahead.
Awesome. What's that?
Hey everyone, my name is Mike O'Connor and I host the YouTube channel I Miss the 90s. Sorry to hijack the Unapologetic Geeks transmission, but he's starting to get into my territory on 90s pop culture. The difference between Eric and myself, though, is that he will give you excellent, in-depth information pertaining to awesome sci-fi movies, whereas I will almost always have a treasure trove of weird and useless facts, personal anecdotes, and usually a dumb picture of me from the 90s. There's that picture. The first few minutes of a movie is responsible for setting the tone for the rest of the film. It's meant to be a signal like, hey, this is what we're going for. And Tremors does that beautifully, with Kevin Bacon peeing off the side of a canyon. Coincidentally, another movie from the 90s also opened with the main character relieving themselves. I'm talking about Waterworld, starring Kevin Costner, which was dubbed the most expensive film ever made at the time. When I was 12 years old, I saw Waterworld in theaters with my mom, and I thought it would be a great idea to record the movie. Now, not with a video camera, but with my Talkboy. Because, you know, I thought it would be cool to relive the movie Waterworld with audio only. I don't know. I was dumb. I'm not gonna throw out a bunch of facts about Kevin Bacon to you. He's a megastar. I mean, Somebody invented the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon game due to his massive success. Now, don't worry, I do have a special 6 degrees at the end of this. Instead, I'm gonna talk about 3 of my favorite characters in this movie, like Burt Gummer, played by Michael Gross. Normally, I have problems with characters that are one-dimensional, and Gummer can, he can kind of be seen as the guns are my identity type, but much to my surprise, he ends up actually being a mostly rational character throughout. And I'm honestly shocked that he wasn't killed off in the movie in like a big blaze of glory. Michael Gross has had a successful acting career, and he was a voice actor in one of the best animated shows from the 90s, Batman the Animated Series. In the episode See No Evil, Gross plays Lloyd Ventrix, who's an ex-con who steals an experimental plastic that turns invisible. He fashions a suit out of it so he can visit his daughter, who he's not allowed to see due to a restraining order his ex-wife has taken out on him. I mean, that's some pretty heavy subject matter for a kid's show. Maybe. Of course, you can't mention Burt Gummer without mentioning his wife, Heather Gummer, played by Reba McEntire. In 1990, Reba had 3 songs in the top 3 US country music charts, with You Lie rightfully in the #1 slot. Reba joined the growing list of musicians taking on acting roles, and I'm gonna argue that she actually did a pretty decent job. Her acting skills are more in line with Madonna in A League of Their Own, as opposed to Madonna in 2002's Swept Away. Now, the last character that I want to touch on is Walter Chang, played by Victor Wong. I've always known Victor Wong as the awesome grandpa from 3 Ninjas, and it turns out that his final role before his death in 2001 was 3 Ninjas High Noon at Mega Mountain. Now, one thing I'll say that surprised me was a lack of any problematic dialogue and interactions with his character. The 80s and 90s certainly had downright offensive characterizations and racial slurs directed at Chinese characters. I mean, even in kids' films, like Sidekicks with Chuck Norris.
May I help you?
You can help everybody in this place.
I'm not gonna play that clip. Just trust me. And in this horror comedy set in a tiny desert town in Nevada with a character like Gummer, I mean, I honestly expected it to go down a different path. Thankfully, it doesn't. Wong has the best death scene in the movie, and I find myself actually really bummed out that his character didn't make it to the end. One of my favorite pieces of trivia about Tremors were some of the working titles thrown around for the movie, like Beneath Perfection, Dead Silence. But my personal favorite is Land Shark. We're gonna take a final vote here on the name of the movie. Everyone raise your hand if you are in favor of Tremors. Raise your hand. Okay, good. Now, how about Land Shark? Yep, Land Shark right here. Come on, no one else? Really? Todd, come on, you said... This is bullshit. Well, looks like Tremors won. Huh? I feel like the reason they scrapped that is because it's a little too close to one of the reoccurring sketches on Saturday Night Live with the same name, but that could just be a rumor. Tremors is a classic horror comedy film that paved the way for others in the 90s like Arachnophobia or Lake Placid. But what I find interesting is that you almost can't even tell that this movie was made or even set in the 90s. The characters, the cars, and even the clothing is almost timeless due to the location in which the movie is set. Now, there are hints here and there, like this bottle of Crush or the glass bottles of Gatorade. Hell, I'd even say that probably the strongest evidence that this is a 90s movie is Gummer's Atlanta Hawks hat. I mean, it couldn't be set in the 2000s because that was a terrible time to be a Hawks fan. I mean, look at that record. It's bad. Now, before I hand it back over to Eric, I did promise a special 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. And since my channel is focused on 90s pop culture and I grew up in the 90s, I'm going to pick Jason David Frank, aka the Green Ranger. All right, Jason David Frank was in Turbo, a Power Rangers movie with Hilary Shepard Turner, who was in Addams Family Reunion with Kevin McCarthy, who was in Hero at Large with Kevin Bacon. I did it. And I totally didn't look that up online, because I did. All right, that's gonna do it for me. Thank you so much, Eric, for having me on your channel. I hope I didn't lose you too many subbies. Again, my name is Mike O'Connor from I Miss the 90s. Later, dudes. All right, that should do it.
Okay then. That was different. Anyway, give me a few seconds to regather my notes here. That strange person really threw me off.
Ah, Jesus! What the hell's going on? I mean, what the hell is going on?
With a green light and a finished script, it was time for casting. Wilson, Maddock, and Underwood all knew they wanted recognizable actors who weren't prohibitively expensive, and so they set up an open casting call, only soliciting a handful of actors. For the lead role of Val, they made offers to Bill Paxton, Bruce Campbell, and Matthew Modine before turning to Kevin Bacon, who'd had major success in 1984 with Footloose, but who had been starring in a series of high-profile flops in the intervening years, movies like She's Having a Baby and The Big Picture. Though he had recently married fellow actor Kyra Sedgwick and was only a couple of months away from being a father, he considered this a low point in his career. Desperate for work and money, he signed on to Tremors. He didn't relish the idea of acting around big rubber monsters, but he did feel like he could have fun with the character, and later in life, he would remark that he probably had more fun on the set of Tremors than on any other film of his entire career. To play Val's partner Earl, Underwood initially wanted Jack Palance, but he couldn't build up the nerve to ask him. Underwood would eventually land Palance for the role of Curly in City Slickers a few years later. Instead of Palance then, they cast Fred Ward, known for The Right Stuff and Escape from Alcatraz, but who Underwood wanted based on his quirky performance as a small-time con man in the goofy comedy Euphoria. Ward and Bacon have amazing chemistry together, and the pair almost by itself makes the movie worth watching.
I'm a victim of circumstance.
I thought you called it your pecker.
For the female lead, Rhonda, they cast the lesser-known Finn Carter, who was only known at the time for doing a 3-year stint on the soap opera As the World Turns. Next up was the survivalist couple Bert and Heather Gummer. Bert is played by Michael Gross, who loved the script and enthusiastically went in for a reading, hoping to shake off his reputation as the father from Family Ties. In fact, he started working on Tremors less than 24 hours after the sitcom's final wrap party. As for Heather, she's played by country music superstar Reba McEntire, who was trying to break into Hollywood at the time.
Magazine!
Even though Underwood was initially reluctant to hire a musician, knowing how rarely that works out, as soon as she came in for an audition, he knew she was absolutely perfect for the part.
What do you think? Max firepower or this?
I go for penetration, the 458, shooting solids, less ammo to carry.
The script called for a Vietnamese man to be the proprietor of the general store, a character named Pham Van, but after casting Victor Wong, best known for Big Trouble in Little China and not to be confused with the studio-era actor of the same name I mentioned in my last video, they made the character Chinese and named him Chang, at Wong's request. Other actors worth pointing out are Ariana Richards, who would later become famous for Jurassic Park, and Carol Marcus herself, Bibi Besh, in a small role as the doomed doctor's wife. Tremors was filmed almost entirely on location in the deserts south and west of Lone Pine, California, around the same time and place Star Trek V was filming. They built the city of perfection from scratch, with buildings made to shake and partially collapse and then be reset for additional takes. The biggest problems with the location were dust, heat, and lighting. At one point, the visual effects supervisor, Robert Skotak, while working on one of the backdrops in the middle of a dry 109-degree day and under the intense set lights, noticed that his own shirt had begun to smoke from the combined heat, after which he and the crew opted to do more work at night.
Look, these creatures are absolutely unprecedented.
Yeah, but where do they come from?
Aside from its clever script and exceptional casting, though, the film's biggest strength is its creature effects, put together by Tom Woodruff Jr. and Alec Gillis from the newly formed Amalgamated Dynamics. Woodruff and Gillis had both worked under the legendary Stan Winston on films like Aliens, and Amalgamated Dynamics would in later years become one of the biggest names in special effects, still working today on films like It and the legendary Godzilla movies. They knew they didn't want the creatures in the film to look anything like the sandworms from Dune, but their original design was a little too phallic, leading to a lot of chuckles in the production offices when concept art started coming in. After fixing that little problem, they were given a lot of leeway to create the beast any way they wanted, with the script being vague about the actual look, only referring to the spikes along the sides that help it dig and, of course, the smaller worms that form the tongue. With the help of Underwood, who had done some documentary work with National Geographic, they pulled from various real-world animals to settle on a final design. They only built one full-sized model to be used in the scene where Val and Earl managed to dig one out of the ground.
I found the ass end!
For the rest of the film, they used partial bodies, a surprising number of miniatures, and even a few hand puppets. For scenes in which the creature bursts out of the ground, they created a hydraulic rig with a hollow center, in which Tom Woodruff could sit to lend organic movement to the monster. It was hardly comfortable, requiring a respirator mask and the ability to handle extreme heat, and Woodruff would have to be inside it for up to an hour at a stretch. Due to the limited budget, a lot of the effects were low-tech, such as the shots of a hump moving across the desert ground, which were achieved using a boat buoy pulled by truck through a pre-dug trench filled with loose dirt. The guts of the creature, which are used for a few key gags, were made with organic materials like pumpkin, which in the heat of the California sun began to rot. Therefore, it's safe to say that sometimes, the actors didn't have to fake it when discussing the awful smell.
Smell like that 'cause it's dead?
The music was originally composed by Ernest Trust, but the studio thought the score he delivered was too goofy and cut most of it out of the film, replacing it with a new one by Robert Folk. However, since Trust's contract stipulated that he'd get credit if any of the score was used, and some of it was, he received final credit in the film, with Folk opting not to share it with him. In its initial edit, the film was given an R rating, and all involved decided to tone it down, replacing a lot of the bad words with fake ones like Mother Humper. Not only did this earn the film a PG-13, but it also gives it a certain charm. This is a rare example of a horror movie being pared back to reach a wider audience that actually works. That said, Tremors does use its one allotted F-bomb especially well. Fair warning, I'm not going to censor this, so cover your ears if you're sensitive to foul language.
We killed it.
Fuck you!
Test screenings for Tremors were very positive, save for the original ending, which remarkably never had Val and Rhonda kiss. Thankfully, a new ending was quickly put into the film before its wide release in January of 1990. Tremors had a pretty good critical response too, with many critics applauding the film's tonal balancing act and homages to classic 50s creature features, along with its strong cast and adept directing from a first-timer. However, probably as a result of a poor marketing campaign and a notably terrible trailer,
and no one knows what to call it.
Megaworms or suckers or suckoids.
Tremors.
It only made an initial domestic gross of $16.7 million against its $10 million budget, well below the studio's lofty expectations. It was considered a flop, and would have disappeared into obscurity if it weren't for strong word of mouth following the film's home video release. There, it became a cult success, earning 3 times its budget, and ultimately leading to a slew of sequels that are still going as of 2020's Tremors Shrieker Island. There was a short-lived television show in 2003, as well as a series pilot in 2018 that boasted the return of Kevin Bacon, but that second one was never picked up. I happen to adore this movie and can pretty much quote it from memory. It is a magical combination of horror and comedy that never gets carried away too much in either direction, and the cast is absolutely electric. I've recently seen some of the sequels, and though I wouldn't say I hate them, they try too hard to capture the charm of the original and don't have the benefit of Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward's chemistry to carry things, not to mention the increasingly terrible CGI. One thing I also think the sequels lack is a coherent theme. Now, I know it seems silly to talk about the themes of a movie like this, but believe it or not, Tremors has some pretty deep subtext if you're willing to dig for it. The movie introduces us to Val and Earl as a pair of men who are dissatisfied with their lot in life and debating the possibility of leaving for greener pastures in the nearby city of Bixby. Val has dreams of meeting the perfect woman, who he describes thusly.
Long blonde hair, big green eyes, world-class breasts, ass that won't quit, and legs that go all the way up.
The two men try to leave it all behind, but are stopped by the creatures, who force them to come up with a plan. In the end, they realize that they belong in the present, and Val realizes that his perfect woman might not match any of his superficial criteria. They don't know it at first, but they've been living their best lives all along, and the thing they've been looking for is right in front of them and worth fighting for. A small town, fittingly named Perfection. I could go really crazy with this and get all academic with the symbology of the worms, how this opening shot mimics this climactic shot, the motif about plans.
See, we plan ahead. That way we don't do anything right now. Earl explained it to me.
And how Bert and Heather's survivalist mindset fits into it all.
Broke into the wrong goddamn rec room, didn't you bastard?
But this video's already long enough. Suffice it to say, Tremors is as intelligent as it is entertaining, and it is one of the greatest cult sci-fi classics of all time. Oh, and by the way, Mike, no, you're not gonna get paid. And that's all for today, my fellow Earthlings. I have to give a big shout out to Mike over at I Miss the 90s for his help in getting started with a new decade. I'm guessing this won't be the last we see of that guy, but if you want more 90s nostalgia, go check out his channel and give him a like and a subscribe. As for me, please consider supporting me on Patreon to get access to bonus content, vote on future topics, and more. You can also check out my website at emcgill.com, where you'll find written reviews of plenty more sci-fi classics in both film and literature. Until next time, though, when we'll have to answer to our reptilian overlords, this is the Unapologetic Geek, telling you to never be ashamed of what you love, as long as you're not hurting anybody.
What kind of fuse is that? Cannon fuse.
What the hell you use it for?
My cannon.